Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are setting the time machine to a very specific, a very pivotal moment in hip-hop history. We're going back to a Tuesday, specifically September 16th, 1997.
That is a fascinating date. September 97. I mean, that's a unique moment because the tectonic plates of hip-hop were just shifting so violently.
It's a real line in the sand, isn't it? If you think about the atmosphere, the dust is, sort of settling from all the mid-90s turbulence.
Right.
We're 6 months post-Biggie, a year post-Tupac. The whole coastal feud thing is changing, and the actual sound of the West Coast is evolving.
It is. It's moving away from that raw, almost lo-fi anger of the early 90s into this highly polished cinematic era of G-funk and gangster rap.
Exactly. The sound was just getting bigger.
And the vacuum left by those tragedies was just immense. The entire industry was in shock, but it was also transitioning. And right in the middle of that storm, stepping into that void, is Mack 10.
And that's our focus today, specifically his sophomore album based on a true story. But our mission here isn't just to, review an album. We're not just going to sit here and say, this song is good, skip that one.
No. We're doing what we do. It's a forensic audit. Because when you peel back the liner notes of this album, you realize it's not just a solo project. It's a convergence, a meeting of legends.
That's the perfect way to put it.
We're talking about a forensic examination of every single artist, every single producer involved. And this is the key. We're sticking strictly to their careers leading up to that September 1997 release date.
It's a time capsule, and it's a roll call of West Coast royalty. You've got the Don, the Superstar, the Hustler, and the Innovator, all on one CD.
All on one disc.
So let's start with the architect himself, the man whose name is on the spine of that CD case, Mack 10.
Born Dedrick Rawlison.
Yeah.
Representing Inglewood, California.
The I. You absolutely cannot talk about Mack 10 without talking about Inglewood. He put that city on his back in a way that was just foundational.
He really did. And by 1997, Mack 10 was in a fascinating position. He wasn't a rookie trying to break in. He'd already established himself as a serious force.
For sure. He dropped his self-titled debut, Mack 10, back in 1995.
Which was a solid debut. It made noise.
It gave us huge hits. I mean, Faux Life was an anthem.
A legit anthem. And then, nothing but the Cavi hit in 96, featuring Ty Dogg Pound. Now, that track alone was a major bridge builder, which is a theme we're definitely going to see a lot today.
Oh, yeah.
But maybe more importantly, by 97, he was a key member of the supergroup Westside Connection.
Alongside Ice Cube and WC, they were a movement.
A force of nature.
Which brings us to his persona. Mack 10 was, energetic, he was street smart, but he also felt like the glue. He wasn't necessarily the lyrical technician that Cube was, but he was the bridge between different cliques.
He was the bridge. That's it. Very few others could do that at the time. He had this charisma that just allowed him to move between worlds.
He was the connective tissue.
The diplomat.
Yeah.
1997 Los Angeles was, well, it was fractured. You had Blood neighborhoods, Crip neighborhoods, you had the Death Row affiliations, the old Ruthless affiliations. It was complicated.
Minefield.
And Mack 10 had this unique ability to just walk into any room, shake hands, and make business happen. He could navigate it.
And based on a true story is basically the blueprint of that diplomacy put to music. So let's look at the vital statistics of this project before we dig into the people.
Yeah, let's look at the specs on the box.
All right. Released September 16th, 1997. The label is Priority Records.
A powerhouse. I mean, Priority was the powerhouse label for the West Coast. If you were on Priority in the 90s, you were legitimate. They understood that market way better than the majors did.
No question. So the album debuts at number 14 on the Billboard 200. It hits number 5 on the top R&B hip-hop albums chart. Pretty strong showing.
Very strong.
But here's the stat that always blows my mind. It was certified gold by the RIAA on October 21st, 1997.
That is insane. That is barely a month after it came out.
35 days.
35 days to move 500,000 units. That's a stampede.
It speaks to the anticipation. People were literally running to the stores. Sam Goody, the Warehouse, Tower Records, to get this CD on day one.
I remember it.
The album clocks in at 50 minutes and 08 seconds.
Which is actually a surprisingly tight runtime for that era, you know? A lot of albums in the late 90s were bloating out to 70-plus minutes because they just wanted to fill this CD capacity. Yeah, this was concise. It was focused. And the genre. I mean, it's a definitive mix. You have West Coast hip-hop, you have gangsta rap, and that G-funk sound all swirling together.
And the production wasn't just, one guy in a basement with a sampler.
Oh, not at all. It was a committee. It was a summit. You had West Coast heavyweights like Ant Banks, Binky Mack, DJ Bobcat, Soopafly, and of course Ice Cube, all contributing to this sonic landscape.
And the structure of the album is interesting too. It's got 6 tune tracks, but it uses these specific insert tracks, Mac Manson, Banging Gears, Gangster Palm.
Yeah, the inserts, they give it this cinematic flair. It feels like a movie soundtrack.
Totally, which makes perfect sense given the title, based on a true story. But to understand the movie, you have to understand the cast. And Mack 10 brought in some serious heavy hitters.
You did.
Let's start at the absolute top of the food chain, the mentor.
Has to be Ice Cube.
You cannot tell the story of this album without O'Shea Jackson. He is featured on tracks 1, 2, 4, 9, and 13.
So many tracks.
Plus, he produced the track WS Faux Life. He's effectively the executive producer of this whole vibe, even if the credits don't always scream it.
Right. But we need to contextualize which Ice Cube we're getting in 1997. This isn't Jerry Curl Cube from CIA.
No.
It isn't even really Boys in the Hood Cube. This is the Don Mega. This is post-lethal injection Cube.
Born June 15th, 1969, in South Central LA. Now, we all know the music, but there's a detail about Cube that I absolutely love, and I think it explains his role on this album better than anything else. Before the fame, in the fall of 1987, what was O'Shea Jackson doing?
He was hitting the books. He was a student at the Phoenix Institute of Technology.
He graduated with a diploma in architectural drafting in 1987. Architectural drafting.
It's such a telling detail about his mind, isn't it?
Yeah.
Drafting is all about structure. It's about lines, foundation, load-bearing walls.
Blueprints.
Blueprints. When Cube writes a verse, or when he helps build a song structure for Mack 10, he's approaching it like an architect.
Yeah.
He's building something that's meant to last.
He builds houses. He doesn't just write rhymes. It makes so much sense.
Exactly. And his resume leading up to 97 is, it's flawless. He started his career with CIA, that group with his neighbor Sir Jinx.
Right.
Then, obviously, NWA becomes the most iconic gangsta rap group of all time. Cube wrote so many of the lyrics, including for Straight Outta Compton. But he broke away at the absolute height of their fame over financial disputes.
A huge risk. He bet on himself, and that solo run that followed. Just untouchable.
Let's just run through it. America's Most Wanted in 1990. He didn't just stay local. He went to New York. He kind of squashed the bi-coastal rap rivalry before it even really started and collaborated with the Bomb Squad.
Public Enemy's production team. That was a statement.
A huge statement. Then Death Certificate in 1991.
Wow, that album.
It debuted at #1 on the R&B charts, and it was so politically charged, the lyrics basically presaged the LA riots. It was prophetic.
Then The Predator in 1992 debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200. It Was a Good Day is on that album.
A perfect song. So by the time we get to Lethal Injection in 93, this Don Mega persona has fully emerged. He's the boss.
Right, so when he shows up on Mack 10's album in 1997, he's not just a guest feature, he is the validator, he's the co-signer.
He's the seal of approval. If Cube is on 5 tracks, the consumer knows this product is quality, it's been inspected.
It's the good housekeeping seal of approval for gangster rap. But Mack didn't just stop with his own mentor. He reached across the aisle to another, absolute giant. The superstar.
Snoop Dogg.
Calvin Cortazar Broadus, Jr., born October 20, 1971, in Long Beach.
This collaboration is just so significant. You have to look at the politics of it. Mack 10 is on Priority Records. Ice Cube is West Side Connection. Snoop Dogg is the face of Death Row Records.
And Death Row in 1997 is hits. Well, it's a sinking ship.
It is. Suge Knight is locked up. Dr. Dre has already left to start Aftermath. Tupac has passed away. Snoop is effectively the last man standing on that label, holding it all together.
And he's got to be looking for stability, right? He's looking for an exit strategy or at least a life raft.
Exactly. So when he hops on the track, only in California with Mack 10, it's not just a feature. It is a visual and audible representation of Snoop diversifying his portfolio. He's making alliances outside of the Death Row walls.
And his history up to this point is already legendary. He exploded onto the scene with Dr. Dre on The Chronic.
And then Doggy Style in 1993 was a landmark G-Funk album. It completely changed the sound of radio. You couldn't escape it.
And just before this collaboration in 1996, he released Ty Dogfather,
His second album. So he was still a massive, massive star.
known for that smooth, laid-back Pimplaya persona. So seeing him on a track with the more aggressive Mack 10 was a moment. It signaled a kind of unity.
It's a geographical alliance. It's the I from Inglewood, South Central with Cube, and Long Beach with Snoop, all in one track.
And speaking of alliances, Mack 10 clearly looked at the map of California and said, okay, we need to go north.
All the way north. He brought in a true Bay Area legend.
To
Beach.
Exactly. Todd Anthony Shaw, born April 28, 1966, in L.A., but he moved to Oakland when he was 14.
And that move to Oakland changed everything. If Ice Cube is the architect, 2 Hort is the original hustler.
The blueprint for independence.
He feels eternal. He started his career way back in the early 80s, specifically 1985, on a label called 75 Girls Records.
And he was selling custom tapes on the streets of Oakland out of the trunk. That is the definition of hustle.
They were called special requests. People would literally pay him to write songs about them or their friends, and he'd record it right there. A true entrepreneur.
Wow.
He eventually signed to Jive in 1987. And here's a little branding detail for you. He officially added the $sign to his name in 1988.
I never knew the exact year for that, 1988.
1988. That's when he officially branded himself as 2 Hort with the symbol. It just shows he was thinking about marketing and branding from the very beginning.
And by 96, he'd actually moved to Atlanta, though he was still repping the Bay super hard.
A pioneer. He was one of the first West Coast guys to really see the potential in the South and make a move.
Of course, famous for that catchphrase and for pioneering that slow flow, pimp lifestyle lyricism. He gets featured on the album's title track, based on a true story.
He brings that Oakland funk, that Mackin vibe. It's a perfect balance for Mack 10's energy.
So you've got the Don from South Central, the superstar from Long Beach, and the legend from Oakland. But Mack 10 still wasn't done with the Bay. He also brought in the innovator.
E-40.
Earl T. Stevens, born November 15, 1967, in Vallejo, California.
Charlie Hustle. 40 Water. E-Feezy.
The man with a million nicknames and a million words he invented.
The founder of Sick White It Records, and a founding member of the rap group The Click, with his family.
E-40 is so interesting because he was a monster in the underground for a long time before the mainstream caught on.
Oh, absolutely. He was the definition of independent success. They were moving incredible numbers of units out of Vallejo with no major label, no radio play, just word of mouth and a loyal fan base.
But his 1995 solo album, in a major way, that's what really broke him open to a wider audience.
That album was huge. And he's rightly described as an innovator of hip-hop slang.
If you hear a word in a rap song today and you don't know what it means, there's a good chance E-40 invented it back in 1994. Flamboyant, Rizzle, you feel me?
The list is endless. His inclusion on the track Can't Stop is so crucial. It signifies Mack 10 bridging that gap between LA and the Bay Area, specifically Vallejo. And historically, NorCal and SoCal didn't always get along in hip-hop. There was a rivalry.
A real rivalry. But Mack 10 just erases that line. He puts Vallejo right next to Inglewood on his album. It's a statement.
It's diplomacy through rhythm.
So the artist roster is just stacked. But the sound of Based on a True Story is so specific. It's thick, it's funky, and man, it bumps in the car.
Oh, it's a car album for sure.
Let's talk about the architects of that sound, the producers.
And this is where the forensic audit really yields the best results, because the average listener sees produced by Ant Banks and just keeps moving. But we need to stop there. That name is so important.
Ant Banks, also known as the Big Badass.
Anthony Banks, a legendary rapper and producer from the Bay Area. On this album, he produced Can't Stop, Tonight's the Night, Dope Man, and the title track, Based on a True Story.
Hold on, that's 4 tracks. That's a quarter of the album. That is a massive sonic footprint.
It is. He was heavily associated with the Dangerous Crew and, of course, 2 Hort. Ant Banks brings this thick, rubbery, almost menacing bass line sound. It's funk, but it's darker than Dr. Dre's G-funk. It's grimier, a little more street.
Yeah, you can hear that Oakland grit in it.
And he wasn't afraid of conflict. He famously had a beef with another Oakland rapper, Pooh Man, back in 1993. The history there runs deep.
He'd been in the game for a while.
For a while. He released his own album, The Big Badass, in 1994. But his significance on this Mack 10 project goes beyond just making the beats. Here's a key detail. Ant Banks mixed the lead single, Backyard Boogie.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yes. So he helped shape the final radio sound of the album's biggest hit. He gave it that final polish. Mixing is the gloss. Mixing is what makes the drums hit your chest when you're in the car. Banks gave Backyard Boogie that sheen.
And speaking of Backyard Boogie, the production on that track is absolutely iconic, and that comes from a veteran who might be the most overqualified producer on the entire project.
DJ Bobcat.
Yeah.
DJ Bobcat Irvin.
This guy's resume is just wild.
You connect whole eras of music. He started as a DJ for Uncle Jam's Army in L.A.
Which is legendary in itself. That's like the foundation of L.A. hip-hop.
He produced The Roaches on the Wall for them. But then, in 1987, he gained mainstream notoriety by helping produce LL Cool J's album Bigger and Deffer.
Wait, he did Bigger and Deffer. That's LL Cool J. That's Queens, New York.
Exactly. An LA DJ produced one of the most quintessential New York hip-hop albums of all time. He produced I'm Bad, and more importantly, I Need Love, the first real massive rap ballad.
So he knows how to make a pop crossover hit. He understands how to make a song that works in the streets and on the radio, which is a rare skill.
A very rare skill. He even released a solo album called Cat Got Ya Tongue in 1989 on Arista Records. And throughout the 90s, he was working on groundbreaking stuff like Ice Cube's The Predator and Tupac's All Eyes on Me.
So when Mack 10 needed that undeniable smash hit for Backyard Boogie and Inglewood Swangin', he went to a guy who'd been making hits for a solid decade.
A certified veteran. He knew exactly what to do.
Now, on the other end of the spectrum, you've got the new blood, the G-funk prodigy.
Soopafly.
Chris Brooks.
From Long Beach. He was heavily affiliated with Ty Dog Pound, with Daz and Corrupt. He was part of that whole death row extended family.
And he produced only in California. Now, listen to the difference between that track and the Ant Banks tracks. It's a whole different flavor.
A completely different feel. It's smoother. It's got those high-pitched, whiny synthesizers.
That's the Long Beach whine. That's the G-funk synth lead.
It's melodic. It's slippery. It sounds like a summer day. Soopafly basically brought the classic death row sound over to a Priority Records album for a day.
But Mack 10 didn't just rely on the famous names, which is what I love about this album. He used it to put his own people on. He put the spotlight directly on Inglewood.
Yes. Let's talk about the new generation he introduced here.
All from the I.
Which, of course, stands for All from the I, with the I being Inglewood.
A hip-hop duo. It was Marcus Squeakaroo Moore and Ryan Binky Garner.
And we have to pause on Binky Mack.
Binky Mack is a massive part of this album's DNA. He is not just a featured artist. He is credited heavily as a producer. He produced tracks 3, 9, 12, and 15, Chicken Hawk 2, WS Faux Life, Inglewood Swangin', and Gangster Poem.
Wait, hold on. That's as much as Ant Banks.
It's a huge chunk of the album. So basically you've got half the album produced by a Bay Area legend and a huge part of the rest produced by Mack 10's own home team.
It creates this amazing balance, right? You have the established, polished sound from guys like Ant Banks and Bobcat, and then you have this hungry, local Inglewood energy from Binky. He kept it grounded in the neighborhood.
He really did. And as a group, All From the First is featured on the posse cut Mack 10, and Squeakaroo also hops on Tonight's the Night. It really feels like Mack 10 was trying to build a team, an infrastructure.
That's what a good leader does.
Yeah.
He was building an entire movement out of Inglewood. He also featured the Comrades.
Kelly K. Mack Garman and Terrell Gangsta Anderson.
A rap duo from Linwood, California. They're on Mack 10 as well.
And we can't forget Young Trey.
Trayvon Green, also known as the Notorious TRE. He produced track 2, the intro. Mac Manson.
Sorry, you're right, Mack Manson, not Chicken Hawk 2. Binky did Chicken Hawk 2.
My mistake. But the point stands.
It does. It's a mix of the absolute biggest stars in the world and the local talent from right there in the neighborhood.
And that creates a very specific texture. It makes the album feel real,
Yeah.
authentic.
So we've met the cast, we've met the directors of photography, so to speak. Now let's get into the actual scenes. I want to deep dive into some of the key tracks of Based on a True Story, and we have to start with the undeniable anthem.
It has to be Backyard Boogie.
If you were anywhere near a radio, a TV, a car, a party, anything, in 1997 you heard this song.
It was inescapable. Produced by the veteran DJ Bobcat, written by Mack 10 and Bobby Irvin, and as we said, mixed by Ant Banks.
It was Mack 10's biggest hit on the Billboard Hot 100. It peaked at number 37, which is a real pop crossover.
And it reached number 5 on the Hot Rap Songs chart. It was a monster.
It's just a perfect party anthem. It celebrates West Coast culture, the barbecues, the lowriders, the dominoes, just hanging out.
It's joyous. You have to compare it to what else was happening in hip-hop at that moment. The mood was funereal. It was dark. It was paranoid. Backyard Boogie was pure sunshine. It was about just existing in your neighborhood without drama.
It normalized the West Coast lifestyle for the rest of the country. And the video with Ice Cube making a cameo appearance, just smiling and vibing, that reinforced the whole connection.
Now, what's amazing is that the B-side to that single became a monster in its own right.
Only in California.
Featuring Ice Cube and Snoop Dogg. Produced by Soopafly and Mack 10 himself.
This was released specifically as its own single, later on, December 13th, 1997. Kind of a weird winter release for such a summer-sounding song.
But it stood on its own. It peaked at number 52 on the Hot R&B Hip Hop Songs chart. It had its own life.
And they performed it live. I remember this so clearly. They did it on the Keenan Ivory Wayans show in 1997.
That was a cultural moment. I mean, seeing Mack 10, Ice Cube, and Snoop Dogg on a late-night TV stage together, doing a little choreography, just having fun, it broke the tension.
It really did.
It showed the world that despite the deaths, despite the beefs, the West Coast was still a family. They could still come together and celebrate.
Another track that really stands out is Dope Man.
Which is a bold, bold move.
It is. It's a cover, or maybe more of a reimagining, of the 1987 NWA classic, Dope Man.
Written by Dedrick Rollison, O'Shea Jackson, and Anthony Banks.
It takes some serious nerve to cover what is essentially a sacred text in West Coast hip-hop.
But look at who is doing it. You have Mack 10, the new star, standing right alongside Ice Cube, the original author of the lyrics. It's a passing of the torch.
It's an endorsement.
A total endorsement. The production from Ant Banks is slicker, it's bass heavier, but the grit is still there.
Yeah.
It's Cube basically telling Mack and the world, you have my permission to touch this. You are worthy.
It's a brilliant way to connect the eras. It draws a straight line from the raw 80s crack epidemic era of NWA to the more polished but still street hustler era of the late 90s.
And speaking of homage in history, we have to talk about the samples on this album. It's a crate digger's dream.
For sure. Take the big posse cut, Mack 10, Mack 10. That contains a sample from Roxanne, Roxanne by UTFO.
A classic East Coast hip-hop record. It shows they were listening to everything.
And Inglewood Swangin', one of my favorites, contains an interpolation of Hollywood Swinging by Kool and the Gang.
Which is, I mean, that's the ultimate California cruising sample. It fits the vibe of an Inglewood tribute perfectly.
And then Tonight's the Night samples Buffalo Gals by Malcolm McLaren.
Which is just wonderfully eclectic. It shows that Mack and his producers had ears that were wide open. They weren't just sampling George Clinton and Parliament Funkadelic like everyone else was. They were pulling from pop, from funk, from 80s electro.
A really diverse sonic palette. So, okay, the album drops, the singles are hitting, it's certified gold in a month. What was the word on the street? What were the critics saying back in October of 1997?
Well, the Source, and we have to remember, a mic rating in the Source in 97 could literally make or break a career. They reviewed it in their October 1997 issue.
The coveted Source review.
And other places like Chris Gow's Consumer Guide and AllMusic, they also weighed in.
These were the gold standards for music criticism at the time.
And the general consensus was that this album solidified Mack 10. It proved he wasn't just Ice Cube's sidekick or the third member of West Side Connection. It proved he was a gold-selling solo artist with a genuine ear for hits. He had, graduated.
And looking back now, from our vantage point, where does this album sit in the pantheon of West Coast rap?
For me, it's a bridge. It sits right in that pocket between the raw anger of the Chronic and Doggy style era and the shiny jiggy era that was about to take over in the late 90s and early 2000s.
The shiny suit era.
The shiny suit era, exactly. This album managed to be polished and radio-friendly without losing its street edge. It's arguably the last great gasp of that specific G-funk sound before everything went super digital and synthesized in the 2000s.
And it's a monument to his diplomacy.
That is the big takeaway. If you take one thing from this whole deep dive, let it be this. Mack 10 did the impossible in 1997. In a year that was defined by division and mourning, he got E-40 from Vallejo, Snoop Dogg from Long Beach, Ice Cube from South Central, and Too Short from Oakland to all coexist on one project.
He united the Bay, the Valley, Long Beach, and South Central.
He wasn't just rapping about being a boss, he was actually executing business like one.
Which brings us to our final provocative thought for you, the listener. We've talked about the what, but think about the how. Considering the intense regionalism of that time, how did Mack 10 actually manage to pull that off? To get all those different powerful personalities from different cities and label situations to work together so seamlessly.
It speaks to a level of respect and a kind of diplomacy in hip-hop that is often overlooked. We always focus on the beefs, but this album is a testament to the alliances.
So here's our challenge to you. Go back and stream based on a true story. Put on some good headphones or play it in your car. But this time, don't just bob your head to the beat.
Listen deeper.
Listen for the architecture. Listen for Binky Mac's hungry production versus DJ Bobcat's veteran polish. Listen for how Ant Banks mixed those drums. Listen to how Ice Cube drafts his verses. Listen to the diplomacy at work.
It changes the experience completely. It really does hit different when you know the full history of everyone involved.
Absolutely. That's it for this deep dive into 1997. We'll catch you on the next one.